Hey all, welcome. Today I'm going to talk to you about the convergence of the digital and the physical worlds. What I mean by that is we're talking about virtual reality and how the world around us is starting to blend from digital and physical, where the boundaries of those are starting to dissipate. So, are we going into the matrix? Perhaps this is a little dated, but I think it makes the point. The matrix shows us an extreme view of a virtual reality, which is why I chose it. I want us to consider the extreme. In the matrix, we submerge ourselves completely into technology and lose sight of the real world around us. I'm not making a statement as to if that's good or bad, I'm just pointing it out. So what is virtual reality or augmented reality? Consider first all the ways in which we interact with the digital world. We play video games, we do research, we interact with loved ones, we keep up on the latest Trump news, we post and share pictures, plus much, much more. Virtual reality allows us to not only interact from the outside, which is what we're doing right now, but from within. We, in essence, enter the matrix. Some examples of this technology that you may not be familiar with is the Oculus Rift, which is an actual virtual reality headset that you wear, and it allows you to enter a virtual reality world as if you're sitting right in it. Video games are the biggest part of where this technology is being used, but if you do some internet research, you can find that colleges such as Stanford are implementing it to create virtual learning environments. So let's talk about how people in society impact technology itself. Well, here's a few numbers of interest. According to the Pew Research, over 64% of US consumers own a smartphone. It's pretty huge. 80% of these owners shop online. That makes most of us pretty connected. So do we only use one device or do we shift? Well, omni-channel usage is a hot topic. Omni-channel is the seamless movement between devices to accomplish or complete various tasks. An example of this that you might already know of is within Apple. Apple allows you to share your own little piece of the internet or the digital world on all your Apple devices. It's fairly seamless for you. It even allows you to do it with non-Apple devices. Well, that's interesting, right? But what does it mean? How might we be shaping virtual reality? Well, just think about it for a second. We've already submerged ourselves into technology. Admit it, you're just as addicted to your smartphone as I am. It's always. But how about leisure activities? And how about a world around us where you're able to do your shopping or anything you really want to anytime and anywhere? Well, that already exists, right? Well, now let's shift our perspective a little and imagine a world where you can enter a virtual marketplace from anywhere at any time. Well, you can kind of do that now, but is it really all that foreign when you think about it if we did it from a virtual reality standpoint? Imagine walking through a market. Imagine customizing the market. Maybe you want it to be a German market. Maybe you want it to be a Japanese market. Maybe you want it to look like an old-time market from the 1920s. It's kind of interesting when you start to consider the customization and the ability for us to digitally do something that we do physically. And how about leisure activities, like I was just saying? We use technology to feed all sorts of aspects of our leisure time already. TVs, movie theaters, and radios are all older technologies. They're all things that we've already been using. Have you heard of Dreamscape Immersive? It's like a movie theater experience, except it allows a group of 6 or more to experience virtual reality together. Is it really a stretch, then, to say take a vacation virtually? We can go anywhere, right? Even beyond the constraints of the Earth we live on. Vacation on the moon, anyone? If the experience is real enough, what would be wrong with that? What would stop people? We can shift our perspective from leisure to work. People already work remotely in video conference. That's not new. We do it from various places. Where I work, we all live in the same state and work in the same state, but we still utilize that technology there. So imagine if you could have a virtual boardroom set up where people across the world could figuratively sit at the same table. They could even see each other, at least an avatar version of themselves. It's kind of interesting. Consider another example. Dr. Don Jewell in San Francisco used a Google virtual reality headset to treat a patient with anxiety over a traumatic event by having them revisit the site of the trauma virtually. Well, think about that. Talk about regressive therapy, but we're using virtual reality to do it. Virtual reality will be shaped by the continual submergence of ourselves into technology. It will fit the needs we dictate to it. Or perhaps it will create something that we can't refuse. I gave you a few examples of some hypothetical situations and some others that were real. Just use your imagination for a second, and you can start to see where the boundaries of our worlds, the physical and the digital, are not as clearly defined as we may think they are. Break down those boundaries a little bit, and welcome to the Matrix. So I work in the financial sector, in banking, and I've worked there for the last 10 plus years, actually closer probably to 15 now. And I've worked in sales, operations, and technology. Right now I'm in technology. The image of banking is shifting. Even just 10 years ago, a bank was a bank. It was the old building with a vault, a teller line, offices. Sometimes they were kind of dark buildings. When I was a kid, I used to think of a bank as being like a library. Be quiet. Well, guess what? People don't need the bank to do the same things they used to. It's true that many still want to come in to open their account, even though they can do that online. They may want to talk to a loan officer or a financial advisor for guidance. They may even feel more comfortable coming in to wire out funds. But what about check deposits? First off, how many people, besides businesses, regularly get checks now? And even if you get one, how often do you actually go into the bank? Or do you use your phone to deposit it electronically? Even if you don't do that, do you just go to the ATM and deposit it there? Well, what that tells us is that the nature of transactional type financial services transactions are changing, and that the nature of a teller line is changing in itself. Since many of those transactions can be done through other channels, and probably most people prefer them, not all, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need a traditional teller line where somebody comes in and you go up to the counter and they take care of your transactions. We could even use a machine to do that. There are teller automated machines that are similar to ATMs. They actually act like ATMs, but they convert over and allow somebody to be able to do banking anytime they want. And it also allows somebody the ability to get assistance if needed through a video conferencing system, kind of similar to what we're doing today. That's kind of interesting, right? The layouts of branches themselves are changing too. We're seeing them get smaller, brighter, and more open. They're being designed with hotel-style offices, which really just means that you allow somebody to come in and out of the office as needed. Maybe you don't want to have 17 offices that are filled. Maybe you just want to have a couple that are somebody comes in and helps people as needed. Why have people in an office when they're not needed? Maybe you can use them better somewhere else. So omni-channel, which we talked about a little while, comes into play as well in banking. You may want to start, say, something like a loan application at home or on your phone. But if you have a question or something more complex comes up, you may want to be able to come into the bank and actually have somebody assist you. Well, omni-channel allows this process to be seamless. It allows your banker to pull up where you left off, assist you, and push it back to you so that you can finish it in the manner in which you please. It does take some technology and infrastructure to build this, because you want to make sure that all of your channels are feeding in and that they all have a real-time interface so that your bankers can get the information and your customers can get the information, and there's no lag in it, because you want the best possible experience possible. Well, I'm giving you all these different examples because I want you to also consider how virtual reality might be impacting banking. Right now, it's not really not that I've experienced, nobody's developing a virtual bank. But who's to say you couldn't? And who's to say in an environment where people utilize virtual reality regularly that they wouldn't want that? Imagine being able to log in or enter into a virtual reality environment and walk up to your digital version of a banking center and have them be able to assist you. You could bring in your digital file with you or pull that information out and deal with an avatar version banker. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen, but it's one of those things that's kind of interesting as we consider how the technology and the convergence of the digital and the physical world will move forward. But you can even complicate things even more in the banking world with Bitcoin. And Bitcoin technology allows transactions to move seamlessly from one person to the next with very little paper trail, and the transaction changes the end result each time it moves. It's just an interesting world we're moving into. So communication. I want to talk to you guys about communication. And on my slide, you'll find, and I'm clicking through them right now, there's a whole bunch of different means of communication. There's GIFs, there's talking, there's texting, there's phone calls, there's presentations. There's all sorts of manners of communication. And the reason I'm sharing this slide and why I think it's so interesting is that some might argue that the best way to communicate is in person. And that's it, hands down. But if you're able to connect and convey ideas in other manners, is it really a bad thing? I read an interesting article titled How Technology Has Changed the Workplace by Natalie Berg. She talks about the changing nature of communication at work and specifically referenced Bring Your Own Devices, BYOD, which is another topic, but it's really basically making it so that your personal device serves as both your business and your personal device, so people are able to utilize one device, which makes it easier for them, and it reduces the costs for a business. But the interesting thing that in the article that I took away was that collaboration doesn't have to be done in person. And I'm a very collaborative person. I like collaboration. And I didn't necessarily think of it this way until I read this article. But it could be shared as easy as sharing a document and updating it by many different people at different places at the same time. That's pretty amazing, right? Think of that in the form of communication and how different it is from what we might consider normal communication. My point is this, that communication methods are changing and allowing us to communicate in new and innovative ways. Of course, with the good comes the bad. We have the ability to tap into a virtual world on demand through our devices at any point, but we're also able to pause and react and change the way we react differently than we would on a one-on-one conversation or in a phone call. When we read a message, we might choose to ignore it. When we choose to delay our response. Our communication becomes disjointed and makes it less of a flow of information and more of a controlled form of information. Do we lose connection when we do this? I have a personal example. I was telling my partner about something work-related on the couch. He picked up his phone, and when I was in the middle of saying something, which I felt was very important, he ended up looking through Facebook. And I was upset. I felt like he was ignoring me. But he told me he could do both and listen and scroll. But really what he was doing was choosing what he wanted to listen to. It's a perfect example of what I just made, of the point I'm trying to make. We're all familiar with Facebook as well, and Messenger. I'm sure many of you use it. Facebook is actually launching a new app called Messenger Kids. It's more of a controlled version than regular Messenger for parents, but it gets kids under 13 into social media communication. So just consider that we are furthering our dive into the digital world and getting our kids into it younger and younger. Think about all this with virtual reality. You could actually hold a conversation in a manner that feels like talking face to face in a completely virtual environment. So in that respect, perhaps the convergence of the digital and the physical world would be a good thing. Communication is changing though, and the end result isn't really fully defined yet. Only the future will know. So next I want to talk to you about some pros and cons of all this. We've talked a lot about change. There are some good things and bad things that we've already addressed. But did you know that the science of epigenetics shows our experiences can change our DNA? That means those experiences that we have and things that are impacting us are passed down to future generations. The world we are living in is changing and changing us, and in so it's changing the future. So I have a couple examples I want to share with you that I think speak really well to the positive and negative aspects of our digital world. Benjamin Painter and his wife divorced because his wife developed a relationship through mafia wars on Facebook. Imagine that, somebody she never met. They were just Facebook buddies in a forum that was just a game. So this ended up ending their marriage. She ended up marrying this other person and has a family with him. And Ben ended up meeting his future partner through a social media or through a social dating app. I have another example, Tara, who is a gay person. She was able to express herself and connect with others similarly minded in an online community. She was able to get support that way. She was in an environment that may otherwise have not supported that and may have caused other strife. So I'm going to let you decide which of these is a pro and which of these is a con, but I will say this. Technology is opening doors, different doors to us. There's going to be impact, and we need to realize this and understand that forging forward is going to have ripple effects. Everything is not black and white. Again, also consider that both of these examples and how they could apply to virtual reality. How would Ben's wife's online relationship been different in a virtual reality environment? How might Tara's experience have differed? In both of these examples, these individuals escaped to somewhere different in order to accomplish something. Is that what virtual reality will give us? Or will it be so integrated with our physical and digital worlds that we can no longer escape? It's interesting. Next, I want to talk to you about what's happening in the world today. We have some political things, and on the slide you'll see a bunch of things I listed out. They're all hot topic items. I have Trump under political and global economy. We have boomers retiring, millennials and next generations in the workforce under societal. Environmental, I have social awareness, cleaner energy, social responsibility. These are all things that most business students in college learn about today, and they're all hot topics in the media. Really, what comes down to it is that we have a lot of information available to us now, and it used to be people waited until the end of the day and they watched their news at the end of the day. Yes, there was a time where it was once a day. Otherwise, they might pick up a paper, or they might go to the library and do research that way. But now we have a lot of information available to us, and it's available to a lot of different people, which may or may not be a good thing. How this all ties into virtual reality, though, is that we have the convergence of the digital and the physical world, and it's going to make things more interesting. Think about it. Imagine groups of people across the planet virtually gathering together. They already do this in a form, but imagine them being able to actually do it in an almost physical way. Imagine the movements that can be made, the passing of information beyond what we're already talking about. It's almost scary to think about how this could impact us both negatively and positively. We can only begin to really speculate as to how virtual reality will be influenced, but as we've talked about already, society and people influence technology. It will be interesting to see what happens as we enter, work, and play in the Matrix. Thank you very much, and have a great day.